Hey everyone, I am Jacia Smalls, and you are tuned into Speaker Sessions with Space Horizons. And joining me today is Kim Macharia, who is the Chair of Board of Directors at Space Frontier Foundation and is the Executive Director of Space Prize. So thank you, Ms. Macharia, for joining me today.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Just to start off, how did you build an interest in the space industry? And did you always have this liking growing up?
No, actually, I had a really unique pathway into the world of space. I was a philosophy student in college, and I ended up writing my senior thesis on democratizing the space industry. And the whole reason I even got to that point was because I had a screenwriting fellowship in college for a couple of years. And I would get funding to do ethnographic research on American values every semester and write a script based off my research. And my last script was inspired by a NASA jacket I found at a thrift store. And I ended up writing a musical comedy about two women from across the world competing for a free trip to space. And so I realized while I was doing my research for that script, it's really hard to get into the world of space if you're a woman, if you're born in quote unquote the wrong country or at a disadvantaged socioeconomic status or anything like that. So I dedicated my senior thesis to focusing on how I could think about what solutions and practical approaches we can take to making the world of space more equitable. And then I decided to take a whole shift in my life path. I thought I was going to go work in media and entertainment. And I went to a space conference in 2018. And when I was holding a door open, I volunteered there. I met my first boss, and then I moved to New York 3 weeks later and began my career in space. And it's been a fun ride ever since.
Wow, just like your whole career trajectory is like crazy, and how you got placed is definitely amazing to hear. I think a lot of times, growing up, we say, oh, we want to be this and we try to shoot for that, but then like life just changes and
Mm-hmm.
flashes. Cause I definitely can like attest to that, going into business, thinking I want to be a business major, but then turning into journalism. So I think that, you took that leap of faith and jump, and it's really crazy. So how did you even like, I know you talked about even writing your paper, and that's how you got it started. But as a child, like what did you want to be like really?
Oh, as a kid, I've always wanted to do things in relation to performing arts, and I still keep performing arts as a big part of my life. I
Mhm.
think, a lot of people think of space as an aspect of STEM, but I think of it more in the lines of STEAM, incorporating that
Wow.
artistic element because space it's a really beautiful environment and ecosystem that we can use to tell powerful and transformative stories. And that's where I really see my place fitting in the industry is that storytelling aspect, because I'm not an engineer, I don't have a technical background, but the folks who are actual rocket scientists and who are developing and constructing the emerging technology that we're going to utilize to propel humanity to the next level, they need to know how to tell their story well because it's just not their focus. And so I've had an amazing time utilizing my childhood passions of performing and storytelling to help to accelerate and uplift the work that's being done throughout the space industry.
Wow. See, that's the thing about it. You can always find like what you want to be and then make a career out of it into something totally that doesn't like correlate with it, but still
Mhm.
had that role in that way. So that's pretty decent. That's awesome to hear. So tell us about being the executive director at Space Prize. What's Space Prize? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, my script that I wrote back in college was a musical comedy about two women competing for a free trip to space. And a couple months ago, I got a call about a project where they were looking for someone to run a contest for young women from around the world to compete for a free trip to space. So we're running an essay contest starting off in New York first, where we're giving away 5 0G flights to a girl in every borough in New York City. But then in Q2 of next year, we're going to be formally launching this fun, crazy global competition for young women to not only have a chance to win this incredible astronaut related experience, but to show them the career paths and the opportunities that lie for them within the space industry. Because at this point in time, the space industry at large simply is not representative of the global population, even in regards to gender. There's a lot of disparity and a lot of a number of different issues that are taking place right now, and people are actively working to combat the sexual harassment charges that have come up in recent history throughout the industry. Like at major companies, there have been some pretty big announcements and terrible PR storms that have happened, and there are a lot of leaders who are trying to figure out ways to uniquely tackle these problems. And thankfully, I get the chance to work on a really fun project that tackles the issue of gender disparity from an exciting, empowering angle, where we get to work with young women who haven't been, jaded by some of the more negative sides of what you can encounter in the workplace. They're open, they're optimistic, and they're ready to dive into this really exciting new field.
Wow, I'm just hearing you talk and you're talking like you're mentioning women and diversifying space and opportunities. So I'm just curious to know, have like you started young in the space industry. Have you like experienced any like challenges being a woman of color in the space industry? And if not even challenges, have you experienced things, heard stories? What has it been like?
I mean, I would say sometimes it's a lot of pressure. I definitely recognize the how lucky I am to have the opportunities I've gotten thus far in my career, and to be connected to some of the most, the leading figures in the industry. I can call them my mentors. And I recognize that I have those like three things working against me: being a young Black woman in an industry that does not tend to put people with all of those characteristics in positions of leadership. And I don't take it lightly, which is why I feel like I work extra hard to really let people know. But not only did these opportunities stumbled into my lap, not only am I grateful for them, but I'm worthy of them. And that's something that I think is really important to showcase and to embody, because in order for other folks who are more like me to come up through the ranks, I think they need to see someone who's out here doing the thing and living their truth and being proud of every aspect of who they are.
Wow, like that's literally amazing. And I could kind of to attest to that as well, being going to an all women's institution in Greensboro, North Carolina, Bennett College. We learn every day about women making history for women because we are the minority, and we have to step back from that and like really show what's out there in the world and step out and just be a part of history, which we are, and be recognized in history. So, what has been the toughest hurdles you would say you had to overcome?
I think that would have to be dealing with learning how to explain the technical components that come with my job, because I do work with a number of projects that are quite technical, and I'm working with folks who have all sorts of PhDs and master's degrees that I don't currently have. And so I kind of have to do a bit of extra legwork, extra research and study time, consist all the time, to make sure that when I get into these rooms with these folks who just certainly just have more knowledge and experience than me in some regards, that I can really hold my place there. And I think making that extra effort has been invaluable for me, but it can be quite challenging, because sometimes you simply feel overwhelmed by the amount of knowledge there is to digest, because rocket science is rocket science. It's quite hard. Space is not an easy field to participate in, but it's something that I think everyone should have the chance to engage with. And so I'm trying to live out and set that example and about that truth by doing the work I need to do to make sure that I can really claim this spot for myself.
Wow. Now, speaking of those hurdles, you're doing your job. So, how would you say what keeps you motivated? How have you overcome this? Like, what keeps you going?
The same reason why I ever entered into the industry. I think space affects really almost every aspect of everyday lives. Like, there's space technology is tied to our world more than most people realize. And right now, there's a narrative out there that the space industry, the field of space, is elite and elusive. And I consistently want to combat that, not just because I think it's totally false. I think that there's space for everyone to participate in the industry in a variety of capacities. But I think it's going to be a detriment to the future of not just humanity's journey into the world, into the stars, into space, but for life here on Earth. People don't realize how, again, space affects all aspects of our lives. When you think about climate change and how we go about monitoring the impacts of climate change and mitigating the impacts of climate change, that so much of it is tied to space technology. And so much of what we're doing in space already affects life here on Earth. I'm motivated because I think the industry needs to change, not just for the sake of appearances of having more diverse people at the table, because it needs diverse voices. We need diverse opinions because space is hard. It's a very difficult industry to work in, and it affects all aspects of our everyday life. And so more and more people should be participating in it for the sake of humanity.
What's it like working, being executive director at Space Prize and even the chair of the board of directors at Space Frontier Foundation? Talk to me about a day in the life.
Yeah, a lot of what I do is centered around interacting with people and doing a lot of strategic thinking. A lot of the work that I did at the Space Frontier Foundation has really lent itself to what I'm doing at Space Prize, which is launching this competition and uplifting women. With the Space Frontier Foundation, I've been with them for the last almost 4 years now. The conference where I got my first job in space is actually a conference that we run. And so it's been a really full circle moment for me to have gone from just a volunteer who knew no one in the industry to now serving as chair. And this past summer at the Space Frontier Foundation, we were awarded $1 million grant from Blue Origin's nonprofit arm, Club for the Future. And it was so exciting for me because at that point we were in debt and I was a month away from taking on the position of chair. And all I knew was that I had to do a lot of fundraising this next year. And that completely took away that concern. I got the money and I was able to just dedicate my first few months in this position towards thinking about how can we go about transforming the Space Frontier brand and taking what we've been known as and transforming it to something that's more relevant for the needs of today. The Space Frontier Foundation has been around since 1988. We've helped to enable almost the very existence and prosperity of a number of companies in the commercial space sector and even just the commercial space sector at large. We've had folks from SpaceX, Blue Origin, all kinds of people really ramp up their connections to the new space community by engaging in our events and joining our own communities. So we've done a really great job at just, again, enabling the existence of the commercial space sector, but now I want to redirect our focus and help us to ensure that we're working to make sure that the global population is properly represented within the space industry's workforce and leadership. So to that end, we've launched a number of initiatives, all centered around diversity and inclusion, climate change, workforce development, all kinds of fun things this past few months. And it's really exciting and exhilarating for me. And honestly, just getting to do the work that I do excites me. I had a meeting very early today with some members from a climate change consortium that we're launching next month formally. It's made up of universities who are on island-based countries because a lot of islands tend to deal with the impacts of climate change the most and have the least resources with which to address it. And so they're studying an aspect of space-based solar power, which is a form of renewable energy that you can leverage utilizing space technology. And we had a meeting today with some of our key stakeholders, and that just got me lit up and so ready for the rest of the day because they're all so genuine in their passion for not just the scientific purposes of this project, but in its power to showcase the transformative impact that can come when you engage in a truly global and collaborative project. And so I'm just really lucky that things naturally get me excited with the work that I do.
Yeah, you can tell. You love your job, sis. You love your job. But let's get into some more space talk. So space tourism is definitely like a thing now. Celebrities are on the wait list to go to space. And I'm thinking about, do I want to get on the wait list too? I think I just read an article about like someone getting food delivered to them in space. So do you ever think about going to space one day? Like, do you want to take a chance to go to space?
Funny enough, I had not really thought about it until about 2 weeks ago. I went to my first rocket launch. I got invited to go to the Blue Origin launch a couple weeks ago in Texas, where Michael Strahan was featured as one of the key astronauts and a few other incredible individuals. And they gave us a private tour of the Blue Origin launch facilities, and they took us around, and we had the most amazing view of the actual launch. And it was just such an incredible, powerful experience. I mean, there's nothing like hearing the sonic boom of a rocket returning to Earth. It was powerful, and they've done such a great job at making this not just something that's some crazy fun adventure, but making it into something that I can totally envision space tourism becoming mainstream and such in the next like 20 to 30 years as the price continues to go down. But this is a really exciting year for space. I mean, technically, I think this is the most amount of people that were ever in at one time was when this rocket went into space. There were 6 astronauts on that rocket. There's also another space tourist from Asia who was up in space as well in that same time frame. So there's a lot of really cool things happening right now, and we're only going to continue to see emerging opportunities for folks more like everyday people, to actually get the chance to touch the stars and go to space. So this is a really exciting time frame.
Yes. Now, speaking of opportunities, what do you think is next coming out of space, or what's next for space in general? What do you say is like upcoming next?
I think we're going to start to see a lot more focus on space traffic management and space debris, because that is the one thing that could stop us from truly enjoying the fruits of our labor when it comes to development of space tech. I've worked on a couple different space debris related projects, and there's some exciting companies. For instance, Privateer Space, they just announced their scientific advisor. His name is Marie Bajal, one of my favorite leaders and mentors. He is helping them lead this project that's going to kind of try to map out what's happening out in space, especially low Earth orbit. And although it's not as traditionally appealing in sound and in nature, when you think about space debris, space junk, all of that, it's just so vital to the success and potential for us to do almost anything else when it comes to space. Is figuring out how do we keep the area that we have around the globe safe and protected. So that's what's really what I have my eye on, is starting to see how people are turning the topic of space traffic management and space debris into something that's truly economically viable. Is going to be really groundbreaking.
Wow, I'm excited. I'm not even like interested in space, but I'm excited. I'm excited to hear this. I guess your energy is like kind of like like coming through the screen, and I'm like, I need to check out space more. So for the like students who are watching your interview right now, what would you say to them just to keep them motivated and like maybe interested in space and like just growing up navigating this world? What would you say to the students watching right now?
Find a community of folks who you can connect with, who you can build and grow together with. I know that can seem really hard when you're talking about space stuff, because there aren't too many easily accessible communities out there, but that's quickly changing. There are organizations like SEDS that I am a huge fan of. They have chapters for high school students as well as undergrad students. There's SGAC, an organization for folks who are young professionals as well as students. There's a Space Frontier Foundation. We have a million fun volunteer opportunities and all kinds of projects. And I think once you find the right organization, the right group to kind of hug on to, do what you can to support the work that they're doing, because it'll come back to you tenfold. I can absolutely promise you that. Everything I've done when it comes to my volunteer work for a variety of different organizations has paid off even 2 to 3 years later. Sometimes it's not an immediate payoff. Sometimes it's I met this amazing person here and we reconnect 2 years later, and then they help me get a job or help me get a really cool opportunity. And it's just being open to all the possibilities that are around you, because the most incredible opportunities can come from the most unlikely of places.
Yes, and networking is definitely key. Do not be scared to ask questions. Do not be scared to shake hands and just say hello to people. You just never know where it can take you, because look at Miss Macharia. Wow, from just holding doors to now being a force in the space industry is extremely amazing. And I'm definitely influenced by you today talking to you. If you could, speaking of connections, if you could like leave your social media, plug your social media, how can people like maybe even be an intern, come meet you one day? Tell us more.
Absolutely. So you can find me everywhere at Galactic, GALACTIC _ Kim, KIM. And you can email me pretty easily at, let's see, Kim, KIM.Macharia, MACHARIA at spacefrontier.org. And I am always looking for people, whether that be for my own projects or projects that my friends are running. There's a lot of need. So there's truly so many opportunities, and I'm happy to do what I can to connect anyone to what's out there right now.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Miss Kim Macharia. Thank you for joining me today. Speaker sessions with Space Horizons, and I can't wait to talk soon.
So thank you, Jasha.